Uh, oh, where am I? Oh, hey dude. Didn't know you'd be awake this quickly. Ah, oh my god, what are you? A gray. A gray alien to you. I'm so out of it. This is too weird. I can't think straight. Yeah, I gave you some heavy stuff, the good stuff. And by good stuff, I mean I just rearranged some chemicals in your body using telepathic matter manipulation. It makes you go right to sleep. And I can teach you if you want. I gotta get... I need to... Hey man, so I'm gonna make you go back to sleep, and then I'm gonna do some experiments on your cock and balls. Huh? Don't worry, I'll put them back when I'm done. What? In his book Underground Bases and Tunnels, What is the Government Trying to Hide?, Richard Sauter talks about deep underground bases built by the military in conjunction with private corporations since at least the 1950s. The book was published in 1995, so it might be a little outdated, but I think it has a lot of good information, and it deals with some alleged bases that are secret and information about them that will never really be disclosed, probably. So the speculation and anecdotal accounts in the book are sort of timeless. Some of the bases were spawned out of fears of nuclear Armageddon during the Cold War. These facilities were meant to be the last holdouts for military personnel in the event of a global thermonuclear war. Some have food, water, and other provisions to sustain hundreds of people for weeks or even months. They use diesel or nuclear energy to power the bases in the event that they're sealed off from the outside world. Mount Weather is one such facility. The base is operated by FEMA, and construction was completed around 1959. The complex contains underground lakes and ponds for water use, a sewage treatment plant, hospital, cafeteria, a radio and TV studio, a crematorium, and an electrical power plant powered by diesel. Mount Weather is a part of the continuity of government system, which is basically a backup government in case most or all of the current hierarchy is wiped out. If some group within the government or military wanted to, I'm sure they could conglomerate at Mount Weather or a similar facility and set off some type of device that would take out a large portion of the government, which includes people, infrastructure, etc., and assume control of the country from the facility. Makes you think. Kennedy started the continuity of government program in 1962, and in the 1980s during the Reagan administration, Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld were involved in continuity of government drills to improve readiness in the event of an attack. Cheney and Rumsfeld would disappear once a year and participate in these secret drills, which involved Cheney, Rumsfeld, and other important people in the government, along with military personnel being transported in lead-lined trucks to military bases, possibly underground bases, to simulate how the procedure would go. Even their wives didn't know where they were, and I think this was on purpose. It was probably on purpose. If the US was attacked, they probably would just leave their wives to burn and nuclear hellfire while trying to get that premium deep underground base pussy. That dumb pussy. The continuity of government stuff kind of freaks me out. It really freaks me out. The fact that Dick Cheney or Rumsfeld were involved and that it's a plan to replace the government is creepy. I mean, this is a plan in case something goes very wrong, but as we know, these types of people love to do false flags and create chaos. So, like I said before, what's stopping them from creating an event in which the government is completely handed over to them? It sounds like some supervillain shit. Demons in human form take control of arguably the most powerful government in the world and are untouchable in some armored underground bunker capable of tanking nuclear strikes. Sauter also talks about a source that told him about an underground facility beneath the White House. The source was sent to deliver papers from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to the White House and was taken by Secret Service agents into an area not available to the public and led to an elevator that he said went down 17 levels. And he said he believed there was more to it than 17 levels. The elevator opened up to a long corridor, and he delivered the papers to a man in a room down a ways in the corridor, then was led back to the elevator and went back up to the White House, and that was it. I think even the most skeptical of skeptics would be inclined to believe there's some type of structure under the White House. I wonder if Secret Service agents snort coke down there. There are many different types of machines that can and are used to dig through dirt and rock to clear out large caverns where these types of bases can be situated. Some of these are flame jet tunneling, pulsed electron tunneling, laser tunneling, water tunneling, and nuclear subterranes. Flame jet tunneling uses concentrated superheated flame jets to cut through rock. Electron tunneling uses high voltage beams of electrons to blast away rock. Laser tunneling obviously uses a laser to slice through the rock. Water tunneling uses high pressure water cannons to cut through rock. And nuclear subterranes are a tubular vehicle with an onboard nuclear reactor that heats a drill bit that literally melts away rock and creates a smooth glass lining on the walls of the tunnel. There's also the drill blast method, the old school method, which is just like it seems. You drill into the rock, plant explosives, and boom. Flame jet tunneling has been said to be significantly cheaper to use over the drill blast method. In California, aerospace companies operated 3 underground bases that are very weird. One was operated by Northrop, which is now Northrop Grumman. The book doesn't name it, but it's known as Northrop Tejon Ranch Radar Cross-Section Facility. It was shut down in 2011, allegedly. The second was near Llano, California, and was operated by McDonnell Douglas, which was merged into Boeing in 1997. It's known as the Gray Butte Radar Cross-Section Facility. The third was operated by Lockheed near Hellendale, California, and it seems like it's still being used today. All 3 of these facilities have runways with pylons on them. The pylons rise up through the runway and carry models of various stealth aircraft to test how well they can evade radar. Could these pylons test back-engineered non-human craft? This picture from the Lockheed facility in Sauter's book is pretty crazy looking. It could just be an F-117, but it's hard to tell. It kind of doesn't look like it has any wings, and I don't know when the picture was taken and if it was before, during, or after the development of the F-117. There's also been reports of UFO sightings, abductions, and lost time events around these installations as well, so it really could be anything. On the evening of May 5th, 1980, a woman named Myrna Hansen and her son were driving from Oklahoma to New Mexico. Near the town of Cimarron, New Mexico, they saw a UFO sucking up a cow with a tractor beam. The story goes that through hypnotic regression, Hansen found out what really happened that night. After the cow was taken aboard the craft, Hansen and her son were taken aboard as well. Hansen said she saw a cow being mutilated, and eventually they were taken to a hidden access that led to an underground base in the desert. They were walked through the base where Hansen could see gray aliens and humans working side by side. She was separated from her son and began to run frantically trying to find him. She came across a room with vats full of bubbling liquid. She looked closer at the vats and saw that they contained dismembered human body parts. Her kidnappers eventually found her and would perform a procedure where they inserted devices into her body, like chips or implants, which were later found on a CAT scan. She and her son were eventually transported back to their car. The hypnotic regression sessions helped her to remember where the base was, Kirtland Air Force Base. I don't know who contacted the base on Miss Hansen's behalf, or if she did it herself, but the Air Force apparently gave an explanation. That Myrna had somehow entered an altered state, possibly from the terror and trauma she was experiencing while being abducted. I guess they were saying she imagined it or created it in her mind due to the real fear she experienced. I don't know if they were saying she imagined the abduction or they were saying that part was somehow real. The story is very muddy. Now, one thing that's weird, other than the entire thing, is that one source I read about this case says that Hansen was put under hypnosis by psychologist Leo Sprinkle. Another says that it was an Air Force psychologist. So maybe she went to both, but an Air Force psychologist? Doesn't it seem a little odd that an Air Force psychologist put a woman under hypnosis and she remembered that she was taken to an Air Force base where aliens were working and apparently dismembering people and animals. And this is weird because of the whole MyLabs phenomenon, which I'll get into in a bit. But Kirkland Air Force Base seemed to be a part of some effort to sway the public, or at least UFO enthusiasts' opinion on aliens and UFOs, as the infamous Richard Doty, a special agent for the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, was stationed there. The same Richard Doty that has admitted to disseminating disinformation to Paul Bennewitz, a UFO investigator at the time. In his book about Dulce Base, Greg Valdez, son of Gabe Valdez, a police officer who was friends with Bennewitz and who also investigated UFO sightings and encounters, says that Bennewitz believed he was communicating with aliens, but it was later found out that it was a small team of Air Force goons, most likely led by Richard Doty, in a rented house across the street, who was sending him messages. The messages were sent through a computer program Bennewitz had created to communicate with aliens. The constant lying and tricks pulled by Doty and his team eventually drove Bennewitz to have mental breakdowns, which may or may not have been an intended goal, along with discrediting Bennewitz's work. So I think it's possible Myrna Hansen was a part of some effort by the Air Force or someone higher in power to convince her aliens were at an underground facility in Kirtland Air Force Base. I don't think the weird connections Kirtland has to the UFO phenomenon can be ignored. The Myrna Hansen case has what I believe are strong connections to the MyLabs phenomenon, which entails military personnel abducting people for experiments and sometimes tricking the abductee into thinking they're being abducted by aliens, either by dressing up in costumes, giving the abductee hallucinogenic drugs, using advanced virtual reality technology, or affecting their brainwaves and brain chemistry with electromagnetic frequencies. In their MyLabs book, Helmut and Marion Lammer talk about one of these MyLabs encounters involving a woman named Delora, who was living on a Navy base that was an ammunition depot in Arkansas in the late 1950s and early 60s. Delora's father was an officer in the Navy, and she remembered being in some type of bunker or facility with her parents and seeing aliens and humans working together, performing medical procedures on people. These people were kept in capsules of liquid or gas, and there were steel doors that looked like they led to an underground part of the facility. She says that there were groups of people that look alike and believes that they were clones. Some abductees say they were brought to an underground facility where there were tanks filled with a yellow fluid and forced to breathe it. They found they were actually able to breathe while immersed in the liquid. This is most likely fluorocarbon and has been in development for decades, since the 1960s. It's a compound that's comprised of fluorine and carbon, and although it's a liquid, it can be breathed in like air. The Lammers believe that these encounters with this liquid were experiments to determine if the compound could be used for military applications. It does make sense. Maybe the people carrying out these experiments couldn't get approval to test on humans, so they just took some people and kept it a secret. Dulce is probably the most popular supposed deep underground military base in the lore. Phil Schneider popularized the base with his fantastical stories of battles between humans and aliens taking place within the installation. It's just a mess, really. There's so much obvious bullshit, but with some interesting possible truths sprinkled in. The possible truths being that the base is an actual secret base used by the military. What better way to hide the truth than to make it look ridiculous? Poison true information of a secret military base with stories of alien wars, and soon everybody thinks the whole story is dumb and they no longer have an interest in if there really is a base or not. Now, are there actually bases that contain non-humans working together with humans? Maybe. Are there bases that are solely non-human bases? Maybe. But I think the Dulce story is such a psyop that you have to be really skeptical about some of the claims. You want to know the most damning evidence that Dulce is disinformation? Guess who the story originated with? Remember Paul Bennewitz, the guy that was psyoped into believing aliens were communicating with him? Well, the same messages, which were from the Air Force disinformation team posing as aliens, told Bennewitz about Dulce Base. They gave him some actual classified info about Air Force projects, and then sprinkled in some poison info that discredited everything else. So this whole thing started from trying to discredit a researcher who was possibly getting close to the truth. And other people such as Phil Schneider and John Lear circulated and added on to the story, furthering it into UFO lore. Schneider talks about being in a war between aliens and humans and missing fingers from the battle. Then he was found dead. Supposedly, he said if he was found dead and it was ruled as dead, then it wasn't and he was murdered. Some say his death was suspicious, but there's a lot of fuckery associated with it, and considering the Dulce Bay story seems pretty much made up, he might have actually just committed suicide. Even if you don't believe in any of the aliens or military abduction stuff, underground bases are real and are being used for very secretive things. The US government is always scheming and planning and building things that they want completely hidden from the public forever. The amount of time, effort, and money put into building them shows that they're built with a purpose in mind, and that they're housing some very important and most likely dark secrets. I wonder how many dumbs are just under our feet, humans and maybe non-humans scurrying around completing their tasks, while the above-ground inhabitants are none the wiser. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you hear some weird noises coming from the ground, no you didn't. Bye-bye.